Hello, this is George Sandman. I'm the founder and CEO of Growth Drive. And Growth Drive is a system used by business advisors to drive client profits, growth, and value. Now, we're also a community. Every week we get together to talk about all things business advisor, everything clients, cases, things we're seeing out in the world. Now, tune in here to this podcast, and you can join the conversation by scanning this QR code, passcode 867. Jump into the conversation. Everyone's welcome. We're looking forward to having you. So here we go. On with the show.
So that's a good thing.
Sorry, David. What do you got?
Oh, sorry. I just had a question for you. Are you planning on doing an in-person conference this year?
100%. And to all of you out there listening to this, guys, this gets listened to a lot. Yes, we're doing an in-person summit. It is October 6th, 7th, and 8th here in Charleston. We're at the Francis Marion Hotel. Why is he holding his hands like that? Because the discounted room block is actually, you have 10 days. So I know a lot of people bring their spouse, their partner, come and play some golf. So this is, we're doing the same format. We'll start formally at 1 p.m. on Monday, and we'll end at noon on Wednesday. However, on Monday morning, we will do a bonus round, and I'm working with one of our colleagues on what that might look like. Think collaboration to generate a better referral-based. Garrison may be involved, but yes. So long answer to a simple question. And David, the theme this year is building a profitable advisory business. And you know me, right? We're going to lean hard into collaboration, helping each other out, getting much more open about bringing each other into engagements, because it becomes more and more clear that it takes a village, and we'll all do better if we start practicing. A lot of us do practice these principles, but I'm going to lean on that. The final agenda hasn't been set, but we are focusing in on probably 4 topics around the building a profitable advisory business theme. Cool.
Thank you.
Any questions, guys?
Yeah, could you speed that up?
Speed what part up? The building of the... Yeah, I mean, well, here's the thing. We all have a lot to share. Some of us are doing great, right? Some of us are actually starting to cherry pick which engagements we want to work on. And some of us, with all of the, bringing the incredible expertise and passion that we do to our engagements, and aren't. What's the delta? Well, let's figure that out. We're going to workshop it, and we'll all, as I always promise, you will get some really valuable knowledge from this. The other thing we're doing is we've done the buddy challenge. So last year we had a little over 40 people here in Charleston, and anyone who was in that room knows it was Tim, you were here. Silvana was here. It's not me saying it, guys. Am I wrong if I say it was an absolute home run? There was like something magic. It was fabulous. It was great, right? So how do we recreate that? Somebody has set the heat on 85. How do we recreate that and grow our community? So the buddy challenge is bring a friend, and you will earn a discount towards future online courses. A discount on Growth Drive. So future online courses, future events, what have you. So please think of someone who's not in our community yet. Tag them. Tell them you've got to come to this thing with me. You will thank me. And we're going to start. Actually, Catherine starts. I have a hard stop at 10:15 because Catherine starts at 10:30. And that's something you'll be hearing from her on this topic. Okay, I'll stop. I'll stop with the infomercial, maybe. Excuse me one second, guys. I got to turn the heat down. It's
It's going to be 80 at least, I'm sure, where George is this afternoon.
Steve, I categorically deny your spurious allegations. Silvana, great to see you. How are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm doing great. How about you guys? Nice to see everyone.
Steve, guess what's arriving to you maybe today? I haven't gone and gotten the update. Thank you for participating in the course. Tim, I assume that everything's going smoothly for you?
Peachy, going faster than I expected. I'm enjoying every minute of it.
Awesome. Thank you. I know I've gotten a couple of really kick in the pants emails from you guys. I really appreciate it. Eric, good morning, man.
Good morning. How's everyone?
Great.
Excellent. Happy Tuesday.
9 years ago today, I met Sydney in January 9 years ago, but we actually saw each other again. You know how smart she is? We met. I gave her my card. I'm like, call me. She tore it up and threw it away. So we met again at the by chance 9 years ago today. And sometimes.
Well, first of all, it's meant to be.
Yeah, well, it's better to be lucky than
George, first of all, it was meant to be. The second time is you call, man. If you really want to talk to her, you call.
Oh, yeah, well, we've been kind of inseparable ever since. Anybody who's met her knows that I married up in such a big way. Way out of my
Yes, you did.
way out of my weight class.
Silvana, you're assuming we as guys are smart enough to figure that out, and we aren't.
Well, I'm not talking for guys in general, but I'm talking about the gentleman here. You are smart enough to have friends that are female, and you're smart enough to go ask for help. Do that.
Now we have a new referral program. Okay, we're going to leave that alone.
You're right, Silvana. We're smart enough. We're just not good at it.
Hey, Eric, I saw your note this morning.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Future of I think we can talk about it publicly.
It's not a secret. We're George and I think we talked about it on this before, but George and I got into a discussion about the future of the profession, and I've got a real passion for and I've used this analogy before, but the comparison of the financial planning industry and what it was 40 or 50 years ago and what it is now. If we look at that and understand that 40, 50 years ago, there were stockbrokers and there were people saving money, maybe even stuffing it in their mattress. Now there's a whole industry around Ks and wealth planning that didn't exist. There was estate planning 50 years ago, but there wasn't general wealth planning. And now there is 50 years later. What should our profession look like? And we've talked about it on this call a little bit and kicked some topics around. What George proposed and I accepted was setting up a committee to just sort of start to explore that and flesh out some of those things and then bring it back to the community as a whole, and which is important that we do that. And we're going to do that at the next conference. We are working on some of that background information to just organize what are some thoughts around that and get some information so that we can have a really good discussion with the community in October, early October, when we get together in Charleston and really talk about what does the future of this profession look like, and a little bit of where would we like it to go. We won't get to steer it completely because the market will steer it somewhat, but we can point it at least in the right direction and help it move in that direction. And that by doing that actively rather than just letting it happen, maybe we can form it into something like the wealth management has, where they have the recognition in the marketplace and quite frankly, the acknowledgement by business owners as being one of their most valued advisors, which is where we all want to be.
Yeah.
And so, Eric, I think that EPI did a study on this, right? They did their 2023 survey, and they found that the financial advisor / wealth advisor is now the number one advisor.
And in 10 years, it went from CPA as the number one trusted advisor to the financial planner. And there's some demographics around that, guys, just as you're absolutely right, Michael. There are some demographics around that explain a little bit of that. And that is baby boomers have aged 10 years. Everyone's aged 10 years in that time. And more of them are reaching out to their financial advisors because more of them are getting closer to that time frame, right? That's one of the reasons. Another reason is, and I think financial advisory has continued to grow and expand and deliver at a higher level and a broader level what they can give to the average business owner. And that has brought them into a place of respect.
You know, Eric, there's something you just said that I'd love to underscore, if that's okay.
Please.
I had a conversation with Francis Brown. Many of you know Francis is Francis is fabulous. He's an attorney by training, tax specialist, wealth advisor, and he's worked for a bunch of different organizations, marquee organizations. And he and I were having a conversation, and we were talking about exit planning and strategic planning, and this exit plan is the ultimate strategic plan. And you'll hear this in a podcast coming soon to a channel near you. Talked about the question, rather than asking, and I'm kind of spitballing here, but rather than asking, do you have an exit plan? Might a wealth advisor ask, and think back to my comment about collaboration, might a wealth advisor, a CFP ask, hey, Silvana, looks like your business is doing great. Say, does your strategic planning consider the future value of your business? Does your strategic planning include planning for the value of your business? And that is a very different question and talk about being relevant to the business, right? Now, the wealth advisor is not going to do a thing. They're having too much fun and making too much money doing what they do. And they're very, very valuable at what they do. How do we, and I wish Larry Dietz was on. He has now set up an OBA, which I think goes live in 4 days, an outside business activity through which he is hell-bent on bringing you guys into his high net worth client, business owning clients. Coming soon, I hope, to a podcast near you as well. So sorry, I got on a bit of a soliloquy, but Eric, you're spot on. And how do we, to not leverage it, how do we better benefit the client and the economy, our communities, through the work?
We all understand there's an educational component to this. We got to be out there and talking to everybody and anybody about the importance of the long-term strategic planning of growth and exit, right? And I say them together because they coincide, right? You can have a long-term growth plan, but ultimately everyone's exiting, whether they like it or not. They are. And so you can either plan for it or you can have it happen to you. And so what are they doing to do it? And I love your point. Financial advisors are the best people to ask the question. Commercial bankers and CPAs don't always ask it, but financial advisors ought to be asking it because they're doing the financial plan for the retirement of that person. They need that component. What's the value of that business that's going to contribute to the estate, right? In whatever function it does, what's the value of that and how does it contribute to the estate? And so if they ask that question and the business owner can't answer it, they ought to be calling all of us, right?
And I would also say this, Eric, and you're a SEPA, correct?
I am.
Okay, so you know that the population of SEPAs is pretty much mostly investment advisors. It's
north of 70%.
So they have taken the initiative to study this and to get training. So that's I think that's maybe what has catapulted them to the top position, because they're talking to their clients about this stuff. Now, they may not be able to implement and actually do some of the exit planning work, but they certainly are talking to them about it, and they're putting it on their radar screen, and they're conversing with them, and they're making it relevant. So they have taken that initiative to get educated in the area.
Right. It's exciting to me. At first, I looked at it and said, what's wrong with this picture? All these financial advisors are getting into this, and they can't do the valuation for the most part in an adequate way. Simplistic tools to do that. And they certainly can't, in most cases, do the work to actually move the value of the business and actually get the business side to where it needs to go. And so I said, boy, what's wrong with this? But actually, I think to your point, Michael, where I've come to is this is a great thing, right? again, crude analogy, sorry, Silvana, but we're at an all-girls school and it's just a few of us guys, right? The growth advisors and the people who are helping grow businesses and ultimately helping exit, it's a target-rich environment. Everybody out there, if all these CEPAs and all these financial advisors are asking this question, they're serving up on a silver platter the thing that we all want, which is to engage with that client and help them change their trajectory, right? We're going to help them move the value of their business ultimately. And then, for some or all of us, ultimately walk through what does exiting that business look like and monetizing the value of that business. And so that's a good thing that it's north of 70% or 80%, because those people are going to serve it up and they've got plenty to do themselves. They're not looking for our part of it, if you will. They're doing their part of it, but they need us, and there aren't very many of us. And there aren't very many of us that are qualified to do it.
But Eric, I could tell you what I have seen in my experience with them. Many of them are associated with big banks and larger institutions, right? And so they have inside of their organizations, they do have capabilities to do valuations. They have capabilities to look at exit alternatives. They look at ESOPs, and they can do all this stuff. But where I see them really focusing is when a client comes to them and says, okay, I'm ready to sell. And they'll say, okay, great. And then also they have investment banking arms and they have financing. So they jump in at the end. I mean, when someone is ready to
go. They have the transactional capabilities, Michael.
Right.
They have all the transactional capabilities. What they don't possess, I haven't met one, and I've talked to at least half a dozen of the really big ones. They don't have the tools to do the consulting work.
Right.
Moving the needle on the business.
And my experience with them is that they're not very interested in even getting involved in that.
Correct.
That's right.
No, more than that. They're not really that interested in referring people in to do that.
Yeah, that's the challenge. And Michael, you're right. That's the challenge we need to overcome.
That's absolutely right.
So I wanted to jump in, George, here.
Well, first and foremost, I'm really happy that we are organizing formally into shaping up our practices, what it is and what is the value that it brings, and how do we fit in the bigger picture of all the people that support small businesses.
Message that. How do we message that out? How do we message that out to the world? Yes.
Yeah, totally. And that is the output. That is what we go forward. But before, we sort of need to figure out where do we fit into this big machine that has been there forever. And I know probably I've said this in previous talks, and maybe not everybody was there, but I feel since 2019, when I got involved into working with small businesses and trying to sort of complete my toolbox as a growth advisor, I've come to realize that, there are parts and pieces of our practice happening either, from strategy and management consulting, or part of transactions or part of transactions or work with wealth advisors, or sometimes active planning. But I don't believe I've seen a bona fide practice with certification that actually defines and actively supports business owners from a growth perspective. And I feel like this is where we fit in. I think the Growth Drive, it's a perfect platform to facilitate that conversation and that work. The question is, how do we get from where we are right now to that? And this is a starting point. I love it. So, Eric, let me know if I can be of support. I would pay, because it's been very frustrating trying to articulate to people what I do. And the message that I get back is, yeah, but that's too broad. I'm like, no, it's not. Because there should be some skill set that should understand the life cycle of a business at a bigger picture, and understand how the pieces put together, and have some assessment and know who are the players to throw the ball at. And those players do their job, but ultimately in the end, we win one game for that business owner. I think that's missing. So if we can do that, that will be wonderful.
Awesome. And just as a quick response, and Steve, I see, I'm sorry, Georgia, but I see your hand up, Steve. Well, so I just say everyone here is going to help with it, right? George and I and a couple of people are just gathering the information so we can get it organized, so we can have a discussion as a community. We're not making the decisions. We're simply, you can't have 30 people on a committee, you'd never get anything done, right? We all understand that. So we're just doing the work that any of us would do to sort of get it all organized for the discussion. So hopefully, yeah. So we'll have that discussion as a group. And we want the input of the whole group. It'll be a better discussion because we've got the information organized to go into that discussion, right? That's the work we're doing right now just to get ready for the fall. Steve, you had a comment.
Silvana, I feel your pain or your situation, whatever it is, but I was having a conversation with a business coach yesterday. I guess he was humoring me. And he said, well, tell me what you do. And I went and told him what I did. And he said, no one's going to listen to that. That's too broad. Absolutely, Silvana. So I'll be honest. I'm struggling with how to articulate what we offer that someone will listen, that a business owner will catch hold of and say, yes, that's what I need. I mean, we're a hell of a lot different than in 90 days you can lose 50 pounds.
Well, yeah, and it comes down to, and I'm just spitballing. How you're trying to grow your business and you know how you're trying to grow your business, but you can't. I understand how to make that growth actionable. I understand exactly what levers to pull. And if you have a few minutes, and now I'm not being intriguing, I'm not using my Dan Sullivan, but I understand which levers to pull. I can help you, instead of guessing at the rocks, identify the rocks and take your business from where it is today to being a best-in-class business. If that's a conversation you want to have, then we should talk. And if it's not, thank you.
Yeah.
It's something along those lines. We lost David. Could I share my screen for a sec?
Joe is about ready to speak up.
Saying it's just simple, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what are your numbers and how do you lead your people? And if I know my numbers, it helps me lead my people. So you got to figure out the pain point is leading the people. So they got another number, so lead their people. And that's why you learn what you're doing. And all I need to know is my numbers that are my pain points, and I got to focus it on help me understand what those numbers are, and then that helps me lead my people. And I remember that I know it's really pertinent to today. It may be 10 years from now, but today's business is I need to know whatever number I need to watch and make sure that, that gas gauge doesn't run out of gas or whatever. But if we could talk to them in terms of knowing your numbers and being your people, I think you get a lot further along. So,
yeah. The challenge is you're absolutely 100% right, Joe. The challenge is business owners are fine, right? Oh, I'm fine. Eric, not kidding. I got a tiger by the tail. Or I'm stuck, but I know what to do. I got to get marketing. They think they're fine and they think they know the answers. So they are not yet educated. And we said this a few minutes ago. How do we educate business owners to start asking questions? A few of them bubble up, but the vast majority of business owners think that they're fine. And even if the business is plateaued, they generally fail to appreciate why the business is plateaued. And our challenge is educating them on that point, because Joe, you're spot on. Once you understand your Moneyball KPI, you can start. But do I know that I need a Moneyball KPI? Oh, Joe, it's easy. It's profit. Like, well, all right. How's your cash flow? Yeah. Fire away.
Steve.
So another part of that conversation I was having, and this goes to the mentality of most buyers. This coach said to me, so what can you do for a business owner in 12 weeks? What pain points are you going to eliminate in 12 weeks? And And at least I would suggest that probably not a whole hell of a lot. You're going to do the assessment, you're going to identify the issues and probably design the plan, but you aren't going to necessarily make their cash situation better. But Savannah?
Well, then that's a good question. Maybe we should do a little bit more of this in future meetings because I think that makes it practical and tangible. My idea of answering that will be, well, number one, I will be able to define where your business is right now, what are your top strengths and weaknesses. And number two, at the end of those 3 weeks, did you say 3 weeks or?
I said 12 weeks.
12 weeks.
Yeah, pick a
At the end
number.
of the weeks, we would be able to have a strategic plan and full alignment on the path forward. I think at this particular, and potentially identify who can help you with your top 2 problems.
So then I agree. I agree with what you're saying. But he or she is still not sleeping well at night because nothing really changed.
Yes, but understanding precedes any solution. So very often, if he's not willing to really truly get that you cannot throw darts without knowing where to send the darts, then probably he's not ready to be our client.
Qualification. I love that, Silvana.
Qualification.
Tim, share some.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So 2 things. One, Steve, when somebody says, "What can you accomplish in 12 weeks?" Best to come answer that with a question. What would you like to accomplish in 12 weeks? And so you keep the person who's asking the questions is the one who's controlling the conversation. And look, this is something I've done elsewhere, not something I've accomplished yet with Growth Drive. So I'm working on it too. If you looked at my other screen here, I've got at least 27 different one-liners on what I do, right? And I'm busy groping around the same challenges that we're talking about here. George rattled off something ad lib a few minutes ago that is perilously close to Donald Miller's prescribed approach for what he calls the 30-second elevator pitch. And it starts with a question. So somebody says, "George, what do you do?" And he doesn't start with an answer. He starts with a question. Do you know how business leaders are always struggling to grow their business? Right. So now you've got them in the story loop. And without getting into detail, then you break it down just exactly what he said. I'm actually going to go back and re-listen to it because it was perilously close to it. But even to what Silvana was just saying, anytime you get pegged with a question like that, you can respond with a question. And really what they're doing is they're following you towards your promised land. They're following you towards some level of engagement. Well, if we couldn't accomplish that, complete that in 12 weeks, that can't be accomplished in 12 weeks, right? But if we could get to the point where you knew what needed to be accomplished over the course of the next 12 months, would that be helpful? Right?
Yeah. That's interesting side note, guys. I don't know if any of you caught it, but yesterday in the Wall Street Journal was an article on a Swedish study that they did talking about saving for retirement. And they looked at the group of people, and the problem they had in encouraging people to save more for retirement was, and they paralleled it to taking a trip. If you go on a trip somewhere, I'm in Wisconsin, if I'm trying to go to Florida, it seems to take forever to drive to Florida on the way there because of the uncertainty and because of the anticipation of what you're trying to get to. But when you drive home, it seems to go much faster. Same distance, different perception, right? And what they said in this study was, if they could get people to think about the future and look back to the present, they can overcome the uncertainty. So just an interesting side point here. If you can get somebody to put themselves, hey, 10 years from now, and I just did this with a client yesterday. I was sitting in front of a client that I'm taking through the assessment stage, the 90 days of building a plan, assessing and building a plan. I said, so it's 10 years from now. Describe what your life looks like. What are you doing? What are the things that are important to you? What aren't you doing? Describe it and put yourself in that position. Now let's look back to where you are now, today, and tell me what needs to change today to get to that view. If we can, and again, this isn't manipulative, guys. This is about helping people perceive what they don't understand right now until they put themselves mentally in that future state and go, oh my gosh, I don't have any money in my account. I need money. Like, how am I going to live? What's, and that realization hits them because right now they're thinking that's 10 years from now. I'll worry about 10 years from now, 9 years from now. Right?
That's what they do. Yeah.
It is.
That's the Dan Sullivan question. Imagine it's 3 years from now, and what has to happen now to get to that point?
For sure. And Steve, your comment before, they all wait until the end. They're running hard on the treadmill, and somebody says to, guys, if you take a stress test for your heart, they tell you, tell me 1 minute before you're out of gas that you're going to stop running. That is the hardest thing to do, guys. It's the hardest thing to do to say, oh, in 1 minute, I'm going to be too tired to run anymore. Right? And so think about business owners. They're running a business for 30 years. They've built this thing. They're going. All they know about is going. And then all of a sudden, one day they go, you know what? I'm kind of tired. I'm going to take my foot off the gas. And instead of planning for that and being prepared for that and walking in and saying, I know in 5 years I'm going to be tired. I don't know if it'll be 4 years or 6 years, but about that, if I had a plan and I was ready, now I can take my foot off the gas and I don't lose value. They haven't done any of that planning, and so they just take their foot off the gas and go, fix it for me. And to your point, Steve, have it done in 12 or 24 weeks, right? In 6 months, I want to be out, and now there's nothing we can do, right? Or the amount we can move the needle is less, right? The only way we're going to get this to where it needs to be is what the financial planners and the wealth advisors have done to say, guys, you need to be saving. You know you're going to need money in retirement, right? You don't want to be just in that nursing home with nothing to do. You want to be doing stuff, right? Like they've cracked that. Hey, they've figured out how to get in there and get them thinking about it, right? And they've changed the perception of society to say we have to save and we have to contribute to our 401k. Not perfectly, but they've moved the needle significantly, and we got to move that same needle. That's what this is about. I think Silvana had her hand up first.
Yeah, that was fabulous, Eric. Thank you.
No, if somebody, I mean, I want to address what it is, but if George wanted to say something, please go ahead, because I know you were trying to say earlier. Okay. So this conversation is very lovely today. I read an article. Tim, what you just said earlier sort of triggered this article I read this morning about focusing and about trying to pick apart, certain things and focusing on them. So I think what could be helpful for us is that in order for ourselves to sort of wrap our brains, how do we go to market, or how do we answer all these questions, or how do we get somebody's attention? Maybe what we can do collectively is sort of break down 4 or 5 different entry points, depending on potential scenarios, and then, put everything we do in that lens and solve that problem and take that scenario all the way to conclusion, and then build multiple scenarios. See, Tim said he has got 30. I don't have 30. I've been looking at my avatars. I have 5 or 6 avatars. And even that somebody said, that's too broad. So what that tells me is that I need to go deeper and deeper to get somebody's attention and to make it very sticky. And so maybe what we can do as part of, one of our collaborations is going and saying, okay, let's take a scenario all the way to, and how can we narrow it down so precisely that it makes a difference to somebody who's listening to it and they want to know more.
Yeah. George, do you have to jump off?
Yeah, just in 5 minutes. So we're good.
Oh, okay.
Joe had reminded me not to hang up on everyone.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe.
I saw that back and forth. Yeah. Steve, you had a comment.
Well, all of this conversation is all the stuff I wrestled with for the last couple of years, but my tiny little book there, that's what we're talking about is the key point that I make is figure out where the hell you want to go. And I did invent that, of course. Stephen Covey began with the end in mind. And once you know where you're headed, then you can make a plan to get there. So if you want to go to Florida, then you need to figure that out. You can't just start off from Wisconsin and head out and expect to get there. As Yogi said, if you don't know where you're going, you might end up someplace else. So,
and wherever you are, there you are. Right. I'm not getting it quite right. Right. Wherever you went, and now I won't get it right.
it's close enough.
Oh, we talk about that in the C3D class on strategy, right? If you don't know where you're going, every path will take you there.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's funny when we look at, you know, bringing us back to the beginning of our conversation and talking about this committee and the future of our profession. I'm just going to, let's populate everything. You know, Steve, you just hit on it. Here's a draft, right? But we're going to discover the client's strategic intent. And that's actually an exit question. Where does this story need to go? Where do you intend to end up? Then we'll look at the business's strategic capacity through the lens of the 3 dimensions of growth. And we're going to help them increase strategic capacity. And that's the magic of the 3 dimensions is, you know, if you simply want to have an oil-weather business that's easier to run with predictable cash flow, great. If you want a business that you can sell to private equity at top dollar, different animal, great. Well, harder, you know. Then we're going to advise them as they execute the plan, going to collaborate with relevant advisors, and we're going to confirm, monitor, and update. Confirm that their intent is still the same, because that changes, can change. We're going to monitor, and it kind of resonates with analyze, design, execute, right? We're going to confirm, monitor, and update as the client moves forward. And if we do all of these things, and wealth advisors, I hope you're listening, you imagine you can run the analysis, you are relevant to all 7 of these, steps. So, and this is a draft. I wrote it based on a lot of the conversations we're having. So I thought I'd just share that.
And they converge, George. I love you bringing this up because they converge. The conversation we're having about where is it going, where's the profession going, converges with that. So just also humbly suggest into this conversation, and Tim, I love your comment that you've got, that you're working through a bunch of different things. Look, I've never met somebody who has the perfect pickup line, right? And so the goal to have again, I understand the exercise of having an elevator pitch. I understand the exercise of being able to articulate what you do, but I would humbly suggest to this group better to understand really what you do and be able to deliver that in many different ways based on the situation you find yourself in. What I love, Tim, your comment about asking questions. When I meet somebody, I often start with questions. Who are you? What do you do? What are you trying to do? Right? And by getting them to talk about their, not only what they love and what they're passionate about, but what their desires are. And that was our conversation yesterday with the husband who happens to own the business and his wife. What's great about this? What isn't so great? What are you trying to do? And his wife, what do you like about it? And what isn't so great? And what do you want to do? And some interesting comments came out in that discussion, right? You start learning what's really important, and it gets a little real when the spouse is in the room. And so I would just say to you, we'd all love to have that perfect elevator speech, but even if you craft the perfect elevator speech, it won't be relevant in every situation. You got to be able to deliver the right message for the right situation, right? And so having an understanding of what that looks like and having the Lego building blocks to put it together at the moment for that situation is a much better solution. And again, Tim, hat off to you, having some good questions to ask that are going to get them to give you enough that you can answer their question, I think are the keys. That doesn't mean you don't have 3 or 4 elevator pitches that you can kind of lean on when you're not sure what to do. But to me, the transparent, honest answer is you answer it in the moment.
Yeah. I love that. And I love the concept of having a question, rather than an elevator pitch. Just if we have a question and and write it down and practice the darn thing. It's like
it takes 5 questions.
Yeah.
Because the first question might not hit true, but the second one or the third one might. It often takes 2 or 3 questions or 4 or 5 to get to the thing that they go, yeah, that is a problem. Let me tell you why that's a problem.
Yeah, that's in the growth conversation. Yeah, the 7 whys. Let's get to the 7. So thank you. I'm looking forward to listening to the rest of this conversation. Thanks, guys.
See you, George.
Eric, when you said earlier that you were talking about your 10-year scenario and that it's not manipulative, it certainly isn't. In fact, I would put to the group that the approach that we take is one of the most effective approaches of coaching there are. It's called guided discovery. And what we're doing is we're leading our clients to a better life, to a better level of realization, but we get there less by telling and more by asking. And so they're drawing themselves into the process. So just realize that even with the pitch thing that we're talking about, so the guided discovery is just a very productive approach. It's a very effective approach because they become willing participants instead of somebody that can sit and evaluate whether they want what you just claimed, if that makes sense.
Yeah. In essence, guys, we shouldn't be selling anything. We should be there. And so, Savani, you kind of hit on this before. I thought we're really guides, or we're really along on their journey. They're not on our journey. We're on their journey, and the only way we can figure out how to help them in their journey is by asking questions and getting involved and really understanding their preferences. Oh, you don't like sushi? Great. We're not going to go to the sushi restaurant I had in mind. And so the second we get into selling mode of we got to hook them with a one-liner again, and I don't think that's what any of us are trying to do, but I'm just taking it to its extreme so we understand it. The second we think that way, we turn into salespeople instead of guides to really help them get where they want to go.
I agree.
I love your signs, Joe. I love when that just reminds me all the time. There are interesting things, components of that you can challenge somebody on. Is the know your numbers the right thing to say all the time? No, of course it isn't. But it was right in that moment. You're right, and those are awesome, right? You got to use your style on what you do well, right? Here we go. Let's see it. Yeah, there we go. Break free. I love that.
In order to get your message clear enough, it's got to be able to fit on this and be able legible, right? So that's the challenge. So probably less than 20, let's say 40 word letters, 20 words, 10 words, whatever. So think about continuing to work on that messaging because, hey, all you want to do is get them to ask a follow-up question. Tell me more. Yeah. 3 seconds. You got 3 seconds.
I love those because they're provocative, Joe. Your statements are statements rather than questions, but they're provocative. Like, what do you mean by that? And I'm going to ask, how do I do that, Joe? Like, I don't get it. How do I go there? And that's going to create the discussion. There's lots of ways to do it. You got to find your style of how to do it.
Really? Interesting. Where is everybody coming? And this is a broad, you can't answer it in such a short period of time question, but we're going after a fairly sophisticated business that has multiple with this growth driving program is really rated for plus 5 million, plus 8 million, plus $10 million company. Do we have a pipeline in which you're grooming future clients? And do you have a product in which you offer that in lieu of, not being ready for prime time. And just a quick, do you have an alternative product that you try to, or you do just wait till that time's right and, you're not ready yet? You don't engage them or you groom them. What's the philosophy there as far as filling the pipeline for potential new clients that may or may not match the growth drive needs?
I don't have a perfect answer for you, Joe, but I think you could move your 5 million down, 1 or 2 million, 2 million maybe, I don't know. But I think you can use that through the growth drive methodology, but pretty much any company. It's the implementation is going to be different. If you've got a 3-person show, that's not the same as a 20-person show with a senior staff or something like that. But you can start walking them down the path. I think, again, begin with the NMI. So this is what you guys, gals should be aspiring to.
Well, you got comments, Savannah?
Yes, I do agree with Steve that, the intent is 5 million above, but I believe that even 2 million above would be a good starting point. You get, enter early. And I think that from that perspective, there is an education component at 2 million, because if we are growth advisors and there is a growth mindset, then 2 million company can learn, or like the business unit decision makers can learn from the growth drive platform and framework to actually grow their business. Now, going about the pipeline, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I think that referrals have been really hard, at least in my area, breaking through the defenses and the feeling like, well, I'm not going to give you my peeps, I don't want you to break my Ferrari kind of thing, is there. And what I've been thinking about is going back to the article that I read today and about being very narrow of targeting the right segment of business owners. I've been thinking about sort of going after segments very narrowly, like without knowing anybody, without waiting for a referral, and just giving that a try and see what the result is. Because focusing only on the referrals, it's wonderful. It is a warm handoff, but it comes with a lot of barriers in trust and in getting people to be ready to give you the referrals. And in parallel, I'd like to try the cold part, where you just put out there, you assess the people based on the very rigorous questions and narrowing down to, are they growth minded? Are they ready to do what they need to do? And so on. And if they hit all those criteria and they're willing to work with you, then go it that way. That's my plan right now.
Yeah. I can tell you, Joe, in response, been doing this, I've been running Oak Hill for 16 years now. I do get a lot of referrals. I probably have had half a dozen in the last 3 months. I met with a prospect last week on a referral, and that same investment or that same financial advisor is introducing me to another one this Friday, right? But it took me, the first 3 to 5 years were really hard for referrals because nobody knew. You don't have a brand yet. Nobody knows how good you are. And too many people hang out their shingle as a consultant while they're waiting to find a job. And so they don't know if you're really serious about it, right? At 16 years, nobody's asking that anymore of us. And we've got a reputation. So what we do is, I always say, we meet people 2 ways. The easy referral to us is something's broken in the business and we'll fix it for them, right? And so if they need a brake job or an oil change, we can do that, if you will, analogously, right? We can do that simple thing for them and build trust with the client by fixing something they want fixed. And it's not hard for the client to accept, I got this broken thing and I need somebody to fix it. That often is a way we get in the door, start working with them, build trust with them, do something of value for them. And then as we're doing that, we have the opportunity to get to know them better and understand some things and then point out, hey, would you like, we noticed this, would you like some help with that? Right. And so we grow into the relationship rather than jump into the deep end right away. The other way we get it is by referrals from people who we built that trust with already, the financial advisors, the bankers, the attorneys that already have that trust with the client and they bring us in. So I think you can work both ends of that by finding the smaller chunks you can carve out that don't take as much trust to overcome at the start. Right? That'd be my suggestion. And we, 16 years in, we still have clients that need to start with a small piece. They won't trust us with this right away. They'll only trust us with that. Some people just don't, some people aren't going to jump into the deep end of trust right away. And so you got to meet them where they're at.
Yeah, but to your point, in addition to your point, once you've done that little thing for them, now you've built the trust, and then you're free to have any sort of conversation you want without, risk of them telling you go away.
And see, even when we take on the big assignments, we strategically plan for some quick hits, even in the big assignment, because we want to make some progress right away that they feel, even in the 12-week thing that they said, we're doing this plan, we're going to fix a few things or point out a couple of things that are easy, low-hanging fruit kind of things that they go, wow, this is going really well. Yeah. Right. So if you're going to say, I'm only going to deliver the big things, and those are going to take a while, you're going to find that people's patience, we said it before on this call, people have, 30 seconds of patience and we're trying to deliver on a 2-hour program, right? It's like, they're going to flip channels, a minute in, because they're just going to run out of patience.
Yeah.
Did I answer?
Going back to some, oh, I'm sorry, Eric, go ahead.
Did we answer are we getting to your question, Joe, or not?
It's a broader conversation around.
Yeah, I get it.
Building a pipeline, right? So I'll give you an example of something that I do. It's just kind of interesting to share, and we're about out of time, so I don't know if we get this. Maybe we can. We'll table this for another meeting.
To George's thing, let's go around and in our last minute or so, can we give a quick? What did we get? What was our biggest takeaway? Tim, takeaway from today?
I'm sorry for the background noise here. I've got somebody else in the room who's having a conversation with Facebook trying to save an account. So it's just, I got a lot out of today's conversation. That great input, knowing that everybody's kind of wrestling with the same thing, trying to figure out your description. And Steve, I want to just sort of close by going all the way back to one of the very first things you said about trying to be more specific and wrestle with the same thing. When I mentioned to people that I'm a growth advisor and that I help them to increase the value of their business, then you're sort of wondering whether they're a match or not. Like they can't really picture what I want. So to get specific, I've been toying around with this approach. I've actually tried it once already, where just to blurt out something and say, I help businesses that want to grow by $2 million or more in the next 12 to 24 months. And, I just threw a dart and I just put that in, right? And I thought, okay, well, that gives somebody something they can either opt in or opt out of that. And I might need a little more thought about how to figure out where to size that. But the very first guy I said that to, he's one of my COIs. He said, well, I want to increase my value by $25 million in the next 5 years. So I don't think I'm one of your clients. Shit, I just aimed way too low. So anyway, but that's one of the things I think there's a pony in there somewhere by giving them that and then letting the ones that want to opt in do it. So sorry for taking so long.
Still X instead of $1, maybe it's X, and then they can take it and apply it against their number.
Tim, I have a quick question. When you gave him that I help 2 million, had you had the opportunity to do the quick assessment on his company?
You're muted, Tim.
I was flying blind. I just took a shot to saw a moving target.
Yeah, I wonder if we can rejigger that, because I think that maybe the 21 question assessment might give us a little bit better understanding on, is it 2 million? But I love your I help with something, I think that it's a good starting point. And just to close this, I love the conversation where we had today, and I love the talking specifically about questions or objections that we hear from people that we're talking to. So I think maybe we can do a rubric every time that covers that. So that's what I got out of it. Thank you for all the input. Eric, I loved your stuff. Tim, loved it. And excellent question, Steve. And Joe, yes, I cannot say enough. Your signs are wonderful. I am your biggest fan.
Yeah. Awesome. Steve, what did you take away?
This discussion needs to continue.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Joe, any pearls of wisdom?
Once again, I go back, what you really, really want, right? And I do what I love. I love what people I love, making a difference, being compensated fairly, and in time for the passion. So oftentimes on the search for the dollars, we're forgetting about the passions. So stay on the emotional side, as uncomfortable it is. We got to figure out what it is they're running to, not running from. I think I heard a lot of that today. So that was helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, I was taking all this in again in this role, in this chair, in this, sort of committee to pull this together. I'm just trying to listen and gather, right? And so there was a lot of fuel for the fire today, just thinking about what some of the challenges that we face are. And it's a good reminder to me to hear some of you who are earlier in your growing your practice. It reminds me of what it was like for me in the first 3 to 5 years, right? It's different than it is for me now at 16 years and speaking nationally and running the Wisconsin chapter for EPI. Those things are advantages that I have that I got to remember that, we all don't look alike. We're all not at the same place, and we're all facing the same challenges, but some of the specific challenges are unique to each of us. So that was awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Yep. See ya.
This episode is brought to you by the Growth Drive Summit. Our theme this year is building a profitable advisory business. Join us in Charleston, South Carolina, October 6th, 7th, and 8th. Expand your network, learn new skills, and generally have a good time. This is a top-rated event. We're looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you.